the first meeting of the Public Safety Advisory Board, June 3rd, 2022. And we have a short agenda, but some important ideas, so some important items related to organization and going forward. I volunteered to initially chair the meeting, but the group needs to select a chair today, and it need not be me. With that, I think we should start on the first item, introduction and welcoming. Do we want to go around and give introductions? Lee, would you start? You have to unmute.
I think I'm unmuted now. Hi, my name is Lee Finney. I live in Mendocino, actually between Mendocino and Little River, I guess. I'm the appointee to this group by Ted Williams. I've had a lot of exposure to law enforcement personnel, was a probation officer in my youth, and worked with police officers and various law enforcement agencies over the years as a negotiator. So that's my connection. I'm happy to be here.
Adam, you're muted.
Hi, my name is Adam Gaska. I live and work in Redwood Valley, lifelong Mendocino County resident. Most of it's been in Redwood Valley. On the public safety side, I guess, I am a volunteer firefighter for Redwood Valley Capella Fire Department. I've been a volunteer for about a little over 2 years. And yeah, that's been most of my experience with public safety.
Scott? Scott, you need to unmute.
Ted, this is Darcy, interim CEO for the County of Mendocino. Scott is running the Zoom for us.
Got it. Okay. Amber?
Hi, everyone. Amber MacDonald. New here to the area, moved to Ukiah in January. Also working for the county. Previously worked for Solano County Sheriff's Office, and I also volunteer with the State Guard military doing mounted search and rescue riding.
Sheriff Kendall?
Matt Kendall, Sheriff.
All right, and this is Ted Williams, 5th District Supervisor. Next item is COVID findings, AB 361. And I hope you've had a chance to look at the resolution attached to the agenda. This gives us the ability to hold the meeting by teleconference for the time being. Any discussion on this or no?
Looks pretty straightforward.
Is there any public comment on this item? Don't see any. Can I invite a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in, County Council, do we need to do a roll call vote or can we just?
Yes, Mr. Chair, for every virtual meeting you do, it needs to do a roll call vote.
Okay. Gaska?
Yes.
Finney?
Yes.
Kendall?
Yes.
Amber?
Yes.
And Williams, yes. Okay, it passes unanimously. Item 3, goals. I think we want to decide on our procedures. A couple items I jotted down. We need to select a chair. We need to probably create a committee to come back with some bylaws for the advisory board, and County Council can supply a template used by other advisory boards. Might need some modifications. And we should think about what how we want to control the agenda for future meetings. Do we want to take input from the public, who will decide which items go on the agenda? Don't everyone speak at once.
Okay, Ted, if I may, it feels a little premature to select a chair. We don't really know each other, and not everybody that's a member is here yet. Would you consider chairing for another meeting as the temporary chair?
If that's what the group decides, but I think county council has instilled that we need to decide today.
No, really?
Even-
Okay. All right.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I would say, at least for right now, I would suggest having an interim appointment while you make some sort of further decision. So you could call it a chair pro tem, or otherwise indicate that it's temporary.
So it would be okay to have Ted be the pro tem chair until we make other decisions. That would be acceptable?
Yes, I would just recommend that it be a decision of the
Of
committee.
the body, yes, got it. I'd like to make that motion if you're willing to do that, Ted.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to hear, do we have anyone else willing or interested?
No, I would second it. I mean, I know Laura. I grew up with her. Lee, I haven't met you before. Adam, I met you 25 years ago, I guess now, when you were just a kid. Your first name's Henry, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I met you 25 years ago when you're just a kid. I was probably 27 or 28 at the time. I don't have any preference on this, but I understand that Supervisor Williams' time is pretty precious, and I'm not certain. To be honest with you, I'd like to ask Supervisor Williams, would you have time to chair another one, or at least until we could figure out?
I would be comfortable on a temporary basis while we get organized.
Okay. Then I'll second the motion.
Okay. Any discussion or ready to vote? Gaska,
Yes.
Finney,
Yes,
Kendall,
Yes.
Amber,
Amber?
Yes.
and Williams, yes. Passes unanimously.
on the issue of a committee to work on bylaws, I'd be happy to participate in that. I've written, not for this county, but I've written bylaws for other organizations. And I actually did some research looked at some of the other boards and committees that this county has and Sonoma County has. And so I'd be happy to, if that's acceptable to everybody, I volunteer. Be one of the members of that committee. Hopefully not the only one.
I could be on the committee as well. That's not an issue. And there's a couple of things that I think that we need to kind of work out on that committee is kind of a direction. I think that we have to know the direction to begin with, and before we can start putting in, we have to know the direction before we can start building the boat to sail there. And let's put it that way.
That's two. I think we can have county council. Can we have three? That's still less than a majority.
Yes, as long as you're less than a quorum, you could still have it be an ad hoc committee.
Any other?
This is Amber. This is Amber. I can volunteer as well.
Okay. There you go.
And county council, can we just do this by direction of the chair, or do we need a motion?
Since you don't actually have rules authorizing the chair to make committees just yet, I would recommend a motion.
I'll make the motion.
And the motion is to appoint Amber, Lee, and Sheriff Kendall to the bylaws committee.
Yes. We get a second on that?
I'll make it a second. I'll second that.
All right, let's vote. Lee,
Yes.
Adam,
Yes.
Sheriff Kendall,
Yes.
Amber,
Yes.
and Ted, yes. Passes unanimously. Do we want to talk about the goal of public input? Are we planning to take concerns from the public about public safety? Or do we expect individual committee members to request agenda items?
My thoughts would be that I think that we should take input from the public. We're going to have to come up with some type of a portal for those to come in, and so that those can be weighed out, as opposed to having some type of a committee to take them, because I'm fairly certain that that would get pretty old pretty fast. A lot of folks would be sifting through things that they may not be able to make heads or tails of whether or not it would actually be a portion of this. So I think collectively, if we were able to take in it kind of as a clearinghouse, it may work a little better.
Other thoughts?
I think it should get filtered kind of through the members of the committee. I mean, otherwise it just becomes a yelling fest. People just have some kind of grievance come to the meeting and they're angry, and it's like, well, could that have been addressed before they even got there?
Lee, do you have any thoughts on it?
No, not having had the experience on this type of a committee. I kind of feel like we need to let the public. I'm not sure it's going to be a yelling fest, but we could certainly amend our process if it turns that letting the public, taking public input turns out to be problematic. But I think I agree with the sheriff on that.
Well, there's a lot of different ways that we could allow the public to bring things forward to us. If we had a website and an email box that was available to the public, then we could certainly go through those and make a decision about what would be a qualifying event or something like that we would need to look into. Or we could allow them to come in and have a discussion with us. However you folks want to do it is fine. My only concern is that I don't want it to be basically a complaint board where every police department and sheriff's office on the face of the earth is mandated under law to already have a system in place to receive complaints. I think this needs to be much more about high-level policy and things like that.
For instance, if we had an email box and you talk about filtering those before they come before the full body, someone has to be responsible for doing that filtering with it. And so would that be a committee of the board, or how would that work?
That would probably be a good question for county council.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chair, I would actually suggest that might be something you could work out in your bylaws, and your committee could brainstorm a few potential ideas for that. I also just want the board to be aware, you can certainly have a process for funneling complaints to a particular channel and to have them to be sort of pre-screened to be more productive. But I do want you to also be aware, because it's a Brown Act body, you're all going to have to take comments on off-agenda items at your regularly scheduled meetings. Now, you can respond to those by saying, please do go through the appropriate process, but you're still going to have to give that opportunity for those comments to happen at the meetings.
So, Ted, did you bring this up today because there's a sense of urgency about making a decision on it now?
I just want us to agree on the process, and I think the bylaws committee could take it up. Okay. And as you do, I'd like for you to think about the broader public safety. It's not just law enforcement; it's also fire. We're going into fire season. Sure. I would put ambulance response into public safety. Right? It's fairly broad. Think of it in terms of what the public considers to be public safety.
Right. There's kind of a list in the Board of Supervisors resolution that created this a while ago that is quite broad. So But yes, I hear what this sheriff said about the importance of clarifying what our mission is up front pretty quickly. So but we should work on that in the bylaws for sure. Um, So I have a question about committee functioning. Is it up to us to organize ourselves, or will staff organize a Zoom for us and schedule it, or how does this work?
It's up to the committee to organize itself. You three of you can decide when to get together, and it doesn't need to be on Zoom.
Doesn't have to be on Zoom. Okay. Okay. Do we all have everybody's contact information? We do. We have email addresses for everyone, I believe, for each other.
And of course, we should make sure that none of us email the majority. This is a committee that's under the Brown Act.
Mhm.
So no group emails. Anything that's for the entire group should happen at a public meeting.
Okay. The three of us can be in touch with each other, obviously, right?
Yes, but then we can't go out and speak with the other ones regarding
What we're doing.
what we're doing. And Christian would be, County Council Curtis would be the person to give us a really quick rundown, but we can have conversations in the ad hoc, or what we choose to call an ad hoc, in the working committee.
Mhm.
However, we cannot do things to influence others who are outside. If they're a member of this group, and Christian, I'm sure that you can speak to it much more eloquently than I can. He'll give it to you in lawyer terms.
Well, hopefully that's not too confusing of terms. If I may, Mr. Chair. Just to understand very roughly under the Brown Act, anytime you have a quorum, so a majority of the membership of the Public Safety Advisory Board discussing anything, that discussion needs to be in a public setting. And that's true whether that occurs all at once, whether you're all together at the same time, or whether it may be simply a series of communications that end up including all of you on the same topic. So the reason for the ad hoc committee is to designate a group that is less than a quorum, that is allowed to meet outside of that public context, to be able to talk amongst themselves, knowing that they shouldn't talk to anyone else on the committee or on the board about that matter. Before coming back with a recommendation then to the full board. So it's a way to be Brown Act compliant, is to make sure that you keep a group that you've designated as less than a quorum working on this one topic, and everyone else knows not to talk to them about that topic, and they know not to talk to others outside of that group about that topic until you're back in the full noticed public meeting where the public has an opportunity to observe and participate. And if I may, I'd also just like to take a moment. We do a regular Brown Act ethics and Brown Act training and ethics training. We typically do one in January of each year, and frequently we do one sometime around the fall as well. We also have them recorded on video. What I think I'm going to do is ask my staff to email all the members of this group to make sure that you have the information that you're invited, so that you can attend those trainings. And if you have questions, please do reach out to my office.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, given all that, I would want to hear from the other members of this committee while we're all together before we separate into an ad hoc. I heard what Ted said about we should also consider broader public safety, not just law enforcement. Is there anything else that anyone particularly is anxious to see in or out of the bylaws? They should say so before we get into the weeds.
Well, another portion that I think that we need to look at is being able to bring in experts in the field to discuss the things that are actually being done, because there may be questions that arise. Why isn't this happening, or why isn't this happening, or why is this happening? And a lot of times there's a vacuum of information surrounding some of the things that we do, and that vacuum gets filled with things that probably are not completely accurate all the time. And so I think that we should also invite and make room for the folks who are experts in these fields who can talk about these things when they come up.
Mhm. Okay, got that. Anything else? Ed, do you have anything else?
No, I see that we have Donna Medley in the attendees. Tony,
Oh.
could you move her in? I think she was having trouble connecting originally.
Yes, I've invited her as a panelist.
Hello, Donna. We just made a bunch of decisions without you.
Donna, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm not seeing her come on.
I
screen.
believe there she is. She just entered.
Yes,
Other shoes.
there's her audio anyway.
Donna, you could unmute.
You can turn your video on too. She is.
Hi.
Hi.
Donna, would you like to?
Yeah, yes, I'm the technologically disadvantaged person who's just joining you after a half an hour trying to get on, but here I am, and I'm sorry, very sorry to have joined late. I'm Dan Jurdy's representative, and I don't know how much you want to hear from me. It seem that everybody's pretty much in the discussion mode, and I'd very much like to catch up on that. I have experience in law enforcement and in advocacy as mental health and civilian oversight of law enforcement. So I've worked for the defense, I've worked for the prosecution, and I hope to bring some experience and openness to and a real hope to communicate better between law enforcement and the community, and that will accomplish good things. So I'm here now, finally. Thank you very much for letting me in.
Well, it's good to meet you, Donna. Where do you live?
I live in Fort Bragg, and just a little south of Fort Bragg, actually, on the coast.
All right.
Donna,
You said you'd worked in defense and prosecution. Are you attorney?
No, I was an investigator, criminal investigator.
Great.
Donna, we were on the goals item. I don't know how much of the meeting you heard, but we created a committee of Amber Lee and Sheriff Kendall to work on bylaws and consider how public input, public concerns should make it to our agenda. Do you have any thoughts about goals you'd like to express?
Well, I'm interested in the communications portion of making sure that the community understands the transparency in the sheriff's department, but also being able to explain. I think what the sheriff just mentioned is that sometimes common understanding of what has happened is not always very complete. And so I think it's important that communication goes back and forth. So not only the experts that might be helpful in being able to explain things, but also resources that are available to us, best practices, that kind of information gets presented to the committee, and then maybe we can have discussions around how we're measuring up in terms of best practices that may or may not fit in Mendocino County. So it's just some of those things I'd like to to be able to suggest that we access. And I think that would be one of my goals, is the communication feature of this board.
I think that's a very good thing to talk about because, to be honest with you, we have a lot of things going on that sometimes, if they aren't communicated correctly, people don't even know that they're happening. And we get busy with the work, and it sometimes leaves that vacuum of information that will be filled by something, and I'd rather have it be filled by the experts.
Mhm.
Okay.
Any further discussion on goals? I should ask, is there any public comment on this item? I don't see any members of the public in the call. County Council, between now and the next meeting, if members wish to add items to the agenda, how should that happen? Does the temporary chair act in that capacity, or should it go to staff?
So if staff is available, that certainly would be a mechanism. Alternatively, I would just suggest that it be the chair pro tem that add the items as communicated at the request of the various committee members.
Okay.
I'm
Next.
just. Oh, sorry. I just want to be clear. Staff certainly may be capable of doing that. I just don't want to volunteer any of Darcy's staff without her weighing in on their availability.
Darcy's going to tell me she doesn't have staff for committees. So between now and the next meeting, if there are items that you want to see on the agenda, please email me, and as much notice as possible, because we do have a publishing period of 72 hours by law. Typically, we post 5 days in advance, and it's nice to have a couple days to allow staff to get it posted to the website. Next item on the agenda is next meeting. How do we want to schedule meetings? How often and what time slot?
Personally, I think that we ought to start monthly, and if that's too often, then we can certainly move it back to quarterly.
Yeah, I would support monthly, and I'm pretty flexible as to when.
I think monthly is good.
I do have, for one thing, I forgot to ask of County Council. You mentioned, Ted, you mentioned that there's a bylaws format that the county prefers, or once there are certain items that need to be included or format that needs to be used. If there's such a format, if somebody could email that to the 3 members of the bylaws committee, that'd be really helpful.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, I don't believe we have a specific template. What we have is examples we've used for other committees. So I'd be happy to make sure that we forward that along.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm hearing monthly. Does this particular time slot work? 4 to 6 on Friday?
Fridays are always best for me. I put all my work that I cannot. I put all the stuff that I don't want to do early in the week, and all the stuff that I do want to do on Fridays, Saturdays, or Sundays. So that way it doesn't feel like you're working all weekend.
It's okay with me as well.
Works for me.
Same here.
I saw Donna put her thumbs up. And I presume first Friday of the month?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I invite a motion to set the schedule?
So moved.
And I'll second.
Second.
Lee,
Yes.
Adam,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Amber,
Yes.
Kendall,
Yes.
and Williams, yes, passes unanimously.
Okay.
Last item was roundtable and questions. I think this was here because it was from the agenda template being the first meeting.
Mhm.
Do we have any final comments or questions?
maybe we need to share our emails with each other.
Do we have them on the list of it? Wait a minute, let me look. No, I don't think we do. We do not.
Do we have a chat?
Not have each other's emails. And there's no chat on
As
this.
in-
Oh, okay.
So I'm assuming that the county has the organizer of this meeting has everybody's emails. They should send them to us. So
We can do that. We can send that out.
that'd be great. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, before you end up adjourning the meeting, I know you commented there doesn't appear to be any members of the public present, but I would still recommend calling for public comment for any items not on the agenda.
Is there any public comment for items not on the agenda? You can raise your hand or press *9. Not seeing any. Any final comments before we adjourn? Okay, I think the meeting is adjourned and I look forward to seeing you a month from now.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
So